Which year was the greatest in video game history is a topic that comes up relatively often during conversations around here. It's fun to look at the present day and see how it stacks up against some of the most exceptional stretches of time that gaming has ever seen. But with a bit of distance, a touch of perspective, and a heaping helping of subjectivity, we can clearly watch the handful of all-time great years rise to the top. And among that rarefied atmosphere, I remain convinced that the year 2001 stands tall as the pinnacle of what our medium has to offer so far. And thanks to a perfect mix of technological timing, first-party competition, and honestly just something in that post-Y2K water, it's a year that I can't see being topped anytime soon. So what is it that makes an unforgettable gaming year? Experiences and moments that helped evolve the medium. An incredible top 10 list come December? A deep bench where every major genre is served a full meal? An adaptation of the DreamWorks 4-quadrant hit Shrek? Well, let me tell you, 2001 has every single one of those in spades, including that big green swampman. The start of the new millennium was a special time for the medium. The 3D groundwork had been laid in the prior generation thanks to games like Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, and Final Fantasy VII. But rules and best practices hadn't been rigidly codified yet. This meant that even big-budget games still felt risky and unique from one another, even if they were members of the same genre. 2001 saw a combination of exciting new games that would spawn beloved franchises, sequels that iterated on and sometimes perfected a formula, and fearless experiments that proved to be some of the most memorable in gaming history. To that, franchise fatigue had yet to rear its ugly head, so there was still a sense of excitement over sequels, threequels, and in some cases, tenquels. Let's dig into some of the highlights of the year, starting with the PS2, which, despite only entering its second year on the market, became the home to some of the most impactful games of all time. When it came to young me, no game that year hit quite as hard as Final Fantasy X, and having just replayed it a few months ago, I can fully understand why. The snappy combat, phenomenal music, memorable characters, and emotional story all congealed to form a JRPG that quickly became a series favorite for millions. It also gave us this, which is a really sweet moment in context and a wonderfully dumb bit out of it. Sony acquired Naughty Dog at the start of 2001 and kicked off their relationship with Jak and Daxter, which remains an incredibly fun platforming adventure and a wildly impressive technical achievement. The fact that a bulk of the world was interconnected without a single loading screen felt like witchcraft at the time. Fumito Ueda and company moved the medium forward with Ico, and despite its truly abysmal US box art compared to its lovely worldwide counterpart, the game would go on to influence generations of Game of the Year contenders, from Dark Souls to Journey to Twilight Princess to The Last of Us. Its stunning world, heartbreaking story, and genuinely moving gameplay felt like one of those, oh, I didn't realize video games could do that kind of moments. And that certainly wasn't the only game to elicit that kind of reaction in 2001. Grand Theft Auto 3 showcased what an open-world sandbox could be and set Rockstar on the path of becoming the shepherds of the objective biggest games on the planet. This was back before development times ballooned to half a decade or more, and it's still tough to wrap my head around the fact that we got GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas in the span of 3 years. Truly wild stuff. Sticking with sequels, Konami gave us a pair of masterpieces on that front. Silent Hill 2 redefined what a psychological horror game could be and delivered a story that clearly continues to resonate with a modern audience, considering we just got both a pretty good remake and a pretty dreadful film adaptation. And then there's Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. What Kojima and company managed to achieve from a technical standpoint on the new hardware within its first 2 years was absolutely staggering. The Raiden sleight of hand has aged wonderfully, and Kojima's prescience towards the direction where technology, communication, and society as a whole was heading remains undefeated.
Been waiting long?
On the less heavy front, in my mind, the extreme sports genre hit its apex in 2001, delivering both SSX Tricky and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, which sit right alongside Jet Set Radio as my triforce of great games featuring activities that could lead to serious injuries if done in real life. Also, Tony Hawk 3 was the only game brave enough to explore the utopian future of Darth Maul skating to the sounds of Del the Funky Homo Sapien. What a time to be alive. Fans of Japanese action games saw the start of a trio of new franchises in Onimusha, Zone of the Enders, and most importantly, Devil May Cry. 2001 felt like a major step forward in the character action genre. Who do we gotta speak to about getting some Jehudi action in the year of our Lord 2026? Apart from all those, I even have love for a bunch of the more forgotten releases of 2001. Shadow Hearts was the delightfully grim RPG sequel to the PS1 gem Kudelka. The Bouncer was a very pretty, very dumb beat-em-up from Square that mostly served as a place for us to hang out until Final Fantasy X arrived. Okage Shadow King was the perfect middle-of-the-road JRPG to rent for a weekend. And of course, there's FromSoft's early masterpiece, The Adventures of Cookie and Cream, a game that I am legally obligated to bring up in every single video essay that I write. Moving on from Sony, November 2001 also saw the launch of not one, but two major consoles, the Nintendo GameCube and the original Xbox. And within its first month or so, the GameCube delivered a half-dozen bangers that made 2001's holiday season a treat for Nintendo fans. The experimental 1-2 punch of Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin showed a playful side of Nintendo that could exist when you didn't have to center a game around one of its flagship characters. Those two paired well with the sweatier joy that millions of us found in Super Smash Bros. Melee, delivering the kind of sequel that was bigger and better than the original in almost every conceivable way. Outside of this, fans of Star Wars had the stellar Rogue Leader, and fans of confining chimps into spheres had the delightful Super Monkey Ball. As for Xbox, though a bulk of the early lineup consisted of ports or forgettable exclusives, it had Halo, which is probably the greatest non-Nintendo launch game that we have ever seen. I know it's very easy to dunk on the modern state of Halo, but it cannot be overstated just how massive the franchise was for its first decade or so, and that all started with Combat Evolved. It redefined how an FPS should control on consoles and delivered an excellent campaign alongside an endlessly entertaining suite of multiplayer options. But those weren't the only pieces of new hardware in 2001. June brought with it the Game Boy Advance to the West, including a pretty packed launch lineup that included a neat port of Super Mario Bros. 2, a new F-Zero game, and the excellent Castlevania Circle of the Moon. And shortly after launch, we saw Advance Wars, Golden Sun, and Wario Land 4 all splashing down. Great year for portable gaming, terrible year for the health of your AA batteries. And even though all eyes were on the exciting new pieces of hardware, the tried and true consoles and handhelds still had a bit of life left in them. The N64 had a few tricks left with Paper Mario and Conker's Bad Fur Day. On the Game Boy Color, Pokemon's second generation was wrapping up with Crystal, and Capcom took a stab at the Zelda franchise with the Oracle of the Ages and Seasons games. And the PS1 saw the recently remade Dragon Quest VII hit the US, as well as a pair of port collections from Final Fantasy and Castlevania that were both subtitled Chronicles, which is kind of weird, right? And even though my sweet boy, the Sega Dreamcast, was struck down in its prime, 2001 still delivered the 56K Phenom Phantasy Star Online, Mavis Beacon's Typing of the Dead, the truly batshit insane Illbleed, and Sonic Adventure 2, which I'm not quite as fond of as the original, but it does have Pumpkin Hill Zone, so all is forgiven.
I ain't gon' let it get to me, I'm just gon' creep down in Pumpkin Hill, I got to find my lost speed.
While it was a bit of a quieter year on the PC front, that didn't stop the arrival of beloved gems like Black and White, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Ghost Recon, and Civilization 3. But for me, the standout PC game of the year was Max Payne, which introduced me, and I'm sure a lot of you, to the wonder that is Remedy Entertainment. Seriously, please protect them at all costs. So if 2001 is the top of the gaming mountain, what are some of the years nipping at its heels? Well, 2007 was brimming with games that felt like they'd become part of the monoculture in a way that we rarely see in 2026. I'm talking BioShock, Mario Galaxy, Rock Band, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Halo 3, God of War 2, the start of franchises like Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed, and Uncharted, and of course the arrival of the Orange Box, complete with the perfection that is Portal. 2017 paired the excitement of the Nintendo Switch with the other consoles hitting their mid-generation stride, delivering us heavy hitters like Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, Hollow Knight, Nier Automata, Resi 7, Pyre, and What Remains of Edith Finch. Hell, Super Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein the New Colossus, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey all released on the same day, October 27. That sounds like an all-you-can-eat Italian, German, and Greek buffet, which honestly doesn't sound super appetizing when I say it out loud like that.
Shit, he's not eating it, Jack!
And despite the planet, I don't know, let's say breaking in 2020, the games that did manage to release in the first year of the pandemic were impeccable. Animal Crossing New Horizons, Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Last of Us Part 2, Hades, Spiritfarer, Like a Dragon, Ghost of Tsushima, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, and some PS5 launch bangers like the Demon's Souls Remake, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Astro's Playroom. But for my money, the only year that truly comes close to 2001's monumental greatness is 1998, which birthed foundational experiences like Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Resi 2, Banjo-Kazooie, Parasite Eve, Xenogears, and the megaton arrival of Pokemon Blue and Red in the West. And that's just consoles. PC owners were showered in generational games like Half-Life, Grim Fandango, StarCraft, Fallout 2, Unreal, and Baldur's Gate. The top 10 games of 1998 just reads like a top 10 games of the decade list, and that's not even hyperbole. But even with all of that, when it comes to the greatest year in video game history, 2001 remains my pick for the best there is, the best there was, and quite possibly the best there ever will be. And if you disagree with me, well, have I got a comment section for you. So hop on in there and tell me why I'm wrong and that gaming peaked in the year 1386 with the legendary GOTY race between AAA behemoth Cup and Ball and indie darling Hoop. In full disclosure, I did vote for Hoop.
Ahem! Testing. Marty didn't read the full title for The Bouncer on PlayStation 2, so I will do it. Its full title is, quote, Scion, a man haunted by a tragic past. Within him lies strength and kindness, but also great sorrow. All this will change when he meets a girl named Dominique. These are the residents of Dog Street, the Bouncer. Do you need help checking our Patreon? It's cool.